Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ideas for Tomorrow.
Good evening. Our guest today is Doug McMillon, the president and CEO of Walmart. Walmart is the largest retailer and the largest private employer in the world. Doug started with Walmart in 1984, unloading trucks while he was in high school. He worked there ever since. Under his leadership, the company has strengthened its position as an online retailer, invested in advanced technologies, improved wages and benefits for its employees, and taken strong public stance on social issues such as diversity and inclusion, racial equity, gun violence, and climate change. Here's a video to tell you more.
Dedicated, determined, and driven, Walmart President and CEO Doug McMillon takes pride in the name badge he has worn for over 30 years. Proud Walmart associate. His business ethics, decisions, and strategies all motivated by one thing: making a difference. When Doug McMillon was 16 years old, his family moved from Jonesboro, Arkansas to Bentonville, the home of Walmart. His career with the company began in high school as a summer associate, unloading trucks to help pay for college. He earned his bachelor's degree in business, then rejoined Walmart in 1990 as an assistant store manager while getting an MBA. A merchant at heart, he rose through the ranks, becoming president and CEO of Sam's Club in 2005. Then, in 2009, Doug was named president and CEO of Walmart International. And in 2014, he was promoted to CEO of Walmart Incorporated. 7 years later, Doug McMillon is still in that role, committed to delivering on Walmart's mission of saving people money so they can live better. As customer shopping behaviors have shifted, Doug has led the company's digital transformation, enabling customers to shop Walmart how they want, when they want, in stores or online. He's led the company's supply chain evolution and its move into the healthcare space. He also sees Walmart as having a responsibility to be a force for good, leveraging the company's size and resources to bring about positive change. The company's long-standing commitment to the environment includes its recent announcement to become a regenerative company, targeting zero emissions by 2040 and aiming to protect, manage, or restore at least 50 million acres of land and 1 million square miles of ocean by 2030. In 2019, Walmart announced it would stop selling e-cigarettes after vaping-related lung injuries and deaths. That same year, a stance on gun violence.
Walmart says it will change its policy on gun and ammunition sales after shootings at 2 of its stores.
After the 2020 murder of George Floyd, Doug McMillon pledged to boost diversity within the company and set a goal to invest $100 million over 5 years to fight systemic racism.
Doug McMillon, one of the most enlightened CEOs in the world.
Adapting to customer needs during the COVID-19 pandemic, Walmart provided essential goods to shoppers and worked with the public sector to help set up COVID testing facilities in its parking lots and help provide PPE. Today, efforts to help combat COVID include strengthening vaccination efforts throughout the country. But at the end of the day, what matters most to Doug is his team and having a positive impact on Walmart's 2.2 million associates who make a difference for customers and communities around the globe.
Doug is very approachable and wants to hear what the associates think.
Which is why Walmart has increased wages and benefits and expanded the company's paid parental leave policy during his tenure. And Walmart recently committed to spend nearly $1 billion over the next 5 years on career-driven training and development, allowing associates to earn college degrees or learn trade skills without the burden of education debt. With a keen business sense and a passion for helping people, Doug McMillon leads with experience and enthusiasm. He hopes to deliver on Walmart's promise to help people live better lives, not just with what Walmart sells, but with what the company can do to help change the world.
Welcome, Doug, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Our pleasure. So, when I think about Walmart, Walmart is such an iconic American company. Everybody knows about Walmart. But I always get struck by its scale and the complexity of the business that you lead. Can you tell us a little bit more in a greater detail, what is Walmart today?
Today, Walmart's about 2.2 million associates around the world. We're operating in 24 different countries. The U.S. is our biggest business, but we have large business in Mexico, Canada, China, India, and other places. And the businesses are changing. They're becoming more digital in nature. As you mentioned earlier, we're growing an e-commerce business. But what I didn't know when we set out on that agenda was how it's going to transform the whole company to be more digital in nature, putting data and technology to work in different ways. So that still continues. There's a lot in front of us. At the end of the day, it's a company with a common purpose that we got from our founder, and we're problem solvers. We're trying to solve the problems of retail and in some other areas too.
Well, let's just speak a little bit about your founder, because recently I had the privilege of traveling to Bentonville several times. So I learned a bit about the history of the company, which is remarkable. So the company was founded about 4 years before you were born. You are now, I think, you are now only the 5th CEO of Walmart in Walmart's history. And you grew up in Arkansas. So what is the secret sauce of Sam Walton's legacy that you still see in a company today?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, the state of Arkansas wanted me to let you know you owe state taxes because you've been here so frequently. So there'll be an invoice of some sort coming your way. Walmart is a unique company. I'm noticing that your company is 100 years old. Congratulations on that. Makes us feel young. We're not yet 60. Sam started this business in Arkansas and grew from there. And he had a way of thinking about value that was different and unique at the time. His thought was there are small towns around America, and as the middle income level was growing in the country and the interstate system had been built out and all of these ingredients were in place, that you could do a lot more business in these smaller towns and bring high quality merchandise, a broad assortment at low prices to small towns. Fast forward to 1992, Sam passed away in April of that year. But just a few weeks before he passed away, President H.W. Bush came to Bentonville to award Sam the Presidential Medal of Freedom because Sam was sick and he couldn't travel. So we had a stage here in the auditorium not far from here, and Sam was seated in a wheelchair, and George and Barbara made a speech, gave him this medal. And when he took the microphone, and you can find this on YouTube and watch it if you're interested, he articulated the company's purpose. He said, the secret is we're all down here working together to serve the customer. And if we keep doing that, we'll be able to show people what it's like to save money and have a better life, to live a better lifestyle. And that was the purpose that he had in mind all along. You can build a good business by serving people. And even though he passed away in 92 and the company's almost 60 years old, we still talk about that purpose all the time because it motivates so many of us to do what we do every day.
You know, it's interesting how this philosophy of starting a business in a kind of a counterintuitive sense, limiting it to small towns in the United States was a key of an initial success of Walmart. But what was even more interesting to learn is that actually the limitation or a part of the business strategy was not just Sam's decision, it was his wife's decision. She didn't want to live in a larger cities. So it was truly, that is truly it was family affair. So, but how did then Walmart leap into becoming one of the largest companies in the world? So starting with the philosophy of serving smaller communities, being tailored to their needs, and now being a global power.
Yeah, really, it was one store at a time. And to your point, Sam and Helen were in this together, and she wanted to stop growing at a very early stage. And Sam was like, no, one more. And those stores just compounded, and we grew from the middle of the U.S. to other parts of the United States, and then eventually in the early 90s to international markets. And along the way, learned how to adapt to those various markets, those different locations, to have local management teams, to deploy technology in different ways. And that enabled the company to become bigger. But even now, we try not to get caught up in the big numbers and just think about an item at a time and a store at a time. And as of late, it's even more about one customer at a time with what's possible today relative to the use of data. We can serve people even better in the future than we did in the past.
You know, it's interesting because when companies become so large, there's always a potential trap of being self-congratulatory. And in particular, in the world of retail, there are many retailers that used to be very dominant at the time, and they're not with us any longer. And for Walmart, just like any other large company, I'm sure that is one risk that Walmart seemed to have been able to avoid and continue to thrive through innovation. So how did you manage to continuously innovate and look for the different ways to grow the business?
Yeah, and by the way, I can see you all doing the same thing. The Cleveland Clinic is not the same organization it was years ago, and it will be different tomorrow. You just keep pressing ahead. What happened here is we all understood, and Sam taught us from the beginning, and that's continued until now, that retailers come and go, and there's really not a lot of customer loyalty in our business. You have to earn it every day. You've got to be in stock, the price has got to be low, the service has got to be good, or they're going somewhere else. They'll go online, they'll go wherever. So we're having to respond to and ideally get in front of wherever the customer is going and be humble enough to know that yesterday really doesn't mean anything. And when I first moved into the office from the stores, I was shocked really at the meetings that were happening here that in some cases Sam was leading and in other cases other people were leading. Because if you'd been in there with us, Tom, you would have thought we were about to go broke. Like we were running really strong sales increases, the business is performing well, but that wasn't discussed. What was discussed was what was wrong. And in our business, there is always something wrong. There are so many problems, large and small, to solve. So we've tried to keep that in our culture, and I think for the most part been successful, but you have to be vigilant about that. You have to keep remembering, and I carry around with me on all my devices this snapshot of the top 10 retailers by decade. And you can look across and see the retailers that came and went. And if you don't change, if we don't change, we're going to be on that list.
Yeah. Oh, that is, I think, the risk that both of our companies share. We have to earn the trust of our patients, our customers, but also our associates, our caregivers every single day. And we have to re-earn it, and we have to re-earn it in a different and a new way.
Do you find yourself talking about that all the time?
All the time. All the time. Change is mandatory. For us at the clinic, we have to get up every morning and think about how can we serve our patients differently and better so that we can continue to give them a reason to choose Cleveland Clinic for their healthcare. Because that's such an important decision in healthcare. It's so personal. That we are very much cognizant of the fact that we have to earn that trust every single day. It's really, really, really important for us.
You mentioned change. If we were standing with a group of Walmart associates, I could say the only thing that's constant at Walmart other than purpose and values is, and they will fill in the blank, change, which gives you that opportunity to adapt to get to the next thing because people expect it.
Yeah. So speaking about the change and the need to change, now you're obviously responsible for the organization that is so dear to your heart. As we saw in the introductory video, you grew up in Walmart, so to say. I'm sure from knowing you, I know that you're preoccupied about the job that you do and making sure that Walmart continues to thrive. In your professional experience, what are those few things that you think have really prepared you well for the job that you're currently doing?
The first thing that comes to mind is from the first time I worked at Walmart, the values of the company felt like mine. I really connected in that first job unloading trucks with a guy named Johnny when he was talking about the company that he had worked with for a few years and talked about Sam and Helen. I was like, yeah, that resonates with me. And that's been true throughout the 30 plus years that I've been here. I think the other thing that helped a lot is I did a lot of different jobs. like we work on career planning, and I'm sure that you and many of the other folks participating today work on this too. With me and with many other people, like I've been here for more than 30 years, but there are many of us who've been here 20, 25, 30 years. I sign certificates for service awards each month. And I'll sign a stack of certificates in the United States that's got 50-year service awards in it, 45, 40, 30. There's a lot of tenure around here. And so we've had the opportunity to have a lot of experience and do different jobs. And early on in my career, not just one person, but other people said, you've done a good job with snacks. Now go buy ladies' wear. Now go do crafts. Now go to international. Now go to Sam's Club. And so, moving into this role was a big deal and pretty intimidating. And like the first day I went out and rode with a truck driver. The second day I came into the office and I couldn't actually sit behind the desk because I was so spooked by it. And eventually my predecessor walked by and laughed at me and said, walk around there for a little while. You'll eventually get comfortable sitting down on that side of the desk. I've been in the office a lot over the years reporting to the CEO, but never on that side of the desk. And it totally blew my mind. But anyway, that stair stepping and that experience, once you get in the role and get a little more comfortable, you can draw upon that experience. And I can't imagine what it would have been like to have been put into that kind of role without that kind of preparation.
And speaking about a desk in the office, I believe that this is Sam Walton's office, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. I sit in what was his office, and every day when I walk in there, I kind of have to stop and take a breath.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Now, every large organization during this time of crisis has really gone through a big test of our values, of what organizations stand for. Can you share with us what Walmart went through during the time of pandemic?
Yeah. We operate stores in Wuhan, so we saw what was happening on the ground in China starting in January of 2020, really. But it took weeks to start to understand what might happen. And so you get to March, that kind of time period, and we're trying to make all the things happen that need to happen, but didn't know all the PPE we needed, didn't know all of the operational changes that needed to occur, couldn't anticipate how customers were going to respond perfectly. And customers responded in unique ways and sometimes as a herd, and it changed, as we know, the inventory situation and supply chain aspects of retail, which we can talk about if you want to. But in the middle of that chaos, it probably was about March, the leadership team realized that we had some emerging priorities that were clear. And the first priority was to keep people safe, keep our associates and customers safe. The second priority was to keep the supply chain moving, because people would have been even more afraid if they couldn't get what they need. The third priority was to help others. We realized we were going to have cash flow and others weren't. We started forgiving rents for some of our tenants. We started extending supplier terms differently, taking action to create support for others. The fourth goal was manage the business well in the short term financially and don't cause problems with inventory or cash or other things that put the business at risk. And then the fifth thing was, we had a strategy when the year started. If you could execute some of that stuff while all these other things are going on, that would be extra credit. And those principles guided us through those first 6 months or so. And what it did is it empowered everybody to make decisions. There were so many decisions to be made that they couldn't all come to the leadership team. We were together frequently, as I'm sure you were, talking hourly and daily in the beginning, and our cadence picked up as a leadership group. But even with that, we needed many other people making decisions. And so those priorities, those guiding principles enabled store managers, Sam's Club managers, and DC managers to make decisions knowing what was most important. And thankfully, I think that helped us get through this in a way that did keep associates safer, kept customers protected, which we were very worried about in the very beginning. And I'm grateful for that.
Now, I would like to kind of address a few of those things that you mentioned. First, the supply chain. I mean, obviously, nobody is more exposed to the complex nature of global supply chain, I think, rather than Walmart. At the very beginning, it was personal protective equipment, it was toilet paper, and then it moved to all kinds of other things. Can you speak a little bit about your daily challenges and how have you seen supply chain evolve during this past year and a half?
It was kind of fun to see how things moved. Like we sold out of things like puzzles that we hadn't sold out of in a very long time. We sold out of fabric because people were making masks and doing things at home. The store, like in the June, July period of 2020 was in our e-commerce business, frighteningly out of stock. Like we got into a really bad position and we were climbing back and then Delta hit, made things worse again. And if you step back now and look at what's been almost 2 years, the period of sustained demand because of folks not participating in the service parts of our economy as much as the goods part of the economy. They're buying merchandise, they're buying new TVs, they're buying things for their backyard, they're buying things around the house because they're in the house a lot more and they want to upgrade something. That sustained demand has created a situation where the supply chain got stretched beyond its ability to recover quickly. And it's shown up in raw materials. You know, semiconductors are the worst example, but there are many other raw materials, things that go into packaging, not just product, that are short right now. So if we walked around one of our stores, we would see more out of stocks than we're used to seeing. Our buyers are doing a great job navigating, figuring things out, and helping us recover. And so our business is able to maintain its momentum, which is good, but it's just a lot harder work and it's a lot choppier. And then on top of that, all the things that happened to the employment market generated wage inflation and shortages in some cases of being able to hire people. That's improved lately, which is great to see, but that stretched things too. So many of our people worked harder just to keep everything moving and to help us overcome it. We do have inflation. We pride ourselves on holding prices low. So our cost inflation is more than our retail inflation. And we're trying to help show not only this country, but the others that we serve that you can trust us and we're going to do our very best to keep the prices as low as we can and have had some success doing that so far.
Well, you have had a tremendous success. To the best of my knowledge, you kept on actually hiring in a time that is really, really challenging. You kept on growing. So, but it's always interesting to hear perspectives with people in positions like yours about the strategy. So you put up the strategy for the growth of the organization before the pandemic hits. You have to readjust on the fly. How is your strategy changing, if at all? So how do you look at the future of Walmart, and are there any lessons during this pandemic lessons that you've learned that have modified your strategy?
I think the two headlines that come to mind are, we had a plan to expand our pickup capabilities and our delivery capabilities, and we were already working towards that and growing a big business there. And then this just kicked it up to another level, maybe pulled 3 years worth of growth into a year. So that stretched us a lot. So certain components of our strategy were already well suited for what ended up happening. That was more luck than anything else. We just happened to be positioned in a place where that was true. But the other thing that comes to mind is the necessity of prioritization. Like you just can't do everything in this environment. So that force ranking has led us to make decisions to exit some of our international markets and sell some of our businesses because we've got to feed the things that are more important, and somebody else should be taking care of those businesses if we're not able to resource them correctly. So there's had to be an even more intense focus on prioritization.
Well, that is clearly the case, but this pandemic has not just put a lot of strain on the way that you ran your business. It has also put a lot of additional strain because there are very many things that have happened during pandemic that have really exposed the long-standing challenges for our country, racial inequities being one of them, gun violence, things that you stood up for. Can you speak a little bit about what in your mind is an evolving corporate responsibility in our society, not just towards our employees, but really towards the communities that we serve and the communities in which we're present?
Yeah. It leads us as business leaders into treacherous territory at times but we both lead organizations that have values, and we lead groups of people that have a point of view. In the case of Walmart, about 1.6 million of our associates are in the United States. So you can imagine how diverse they are in every way. They look like America, including politically. So one of the things that goes through our mind is we want to live in a way, do things that are consistent with, and say things that are consistent with our values, but we don't want to be political. We're a retailer. We're trying to buy and sell merchandise. Now, there are things that we were doing related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, related to environmental sustainability and becoming a regenerative company. Those things are good for our business. We employ a lot of people. We should be working on diversity. We have a big supply chain. We should be working on the environment, which, by the way, can eliminate waste and help save us money. So those things are underway. But then these other things occur that you didn't anticipate. The murder of George Floyd, or the shooting that took place in our El Paso store, and shooting that took place in South Haven, Mississippi shortly before that. And other things happen politically that kind of draw us into saying nothing doesn't feel like a very good option. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel true to who we are. And we try to explain where our heart is and where we're coming from when we have something to say about this. We don't wake up in the morning saying, let's make some sort of political or social statement. But we do have to respond in some of these instances to reflect who we are as a company. And I personally get a lot of help and input from our leaders, people like Dan Bartlett that work here, but also our associates give me a ton of feedback on social media, email, and other forms. I'm in-person store visits. I'm getting a lot of feedback and able to work through all of that with the team to decide when we say something, when we don't. And when we do say something, let's try to do it in a way that's appropriate and respectful.
You know, I'm really struck about how passionate you are about the well-being of your associates, and diversity of inclusion is such an important value for Walmart as it is for Cleveland Clinic. Can you share with us a bit about the actual process that you're going through as an organization? How are you making sure that what we proclaim and feel strongly about for the right reasons translates into actual business practices?
Sure. The murder of George Floyd and others created a moment where we looked in the mirror and said, okay, we've been doing things and saying things, but there has to be more because what's happening is not okay. How do we change even more? And we had learned from our work on the environment that the closer we get our work to core, the more impactful it is and the longer it lasts. So if you can weave in eliminating toxins, changing packaging as it relates to the environment into the core business and have that be an everyday responsibility of a buyer, for example, it perpetuates. So how do you do that with racial equity? We ended up having a 3-dimensional process to respond to what happened. The first one is inside the company, all of our hiring practice, pay equity, promotional practices need to generate a better outcome. We employ something like 320,000 Black or African American associates in the country, so maybe 20% of our base, but only 7% of our officers were African American or Black. So what's wrong with our system that has us not looking like America and not looking like our associate base? Try to diagnose that and develop tactics, diverse slates, team interviews, other things to help overcome some of those unconscious biases that we all have, things like that. The second dimension was related to taking the core business and putting it to work. Think of our purchase orders. What more can we do to do business with diverse suppliers? We're doing something like $13 billion with diverse suppliers per year, but as a percent of total, that's not as high as it could be. What more can we do? Where do we put our money at night? Which banks get our deposits that they can then turn around and loan? And how do you find Black-owned banks, for example, that you can do that with? Healthcare. We had 4 systems basically we went after. The healthcare system, the educational system, criminal justice, and education, healthcare, criminal justice, and I'm forgetting the other one. And we put teams, African-American leaders, against those systems to look for our policies and procedures that we could adjust to go serve and change those 4 systems. And then the last thing we did was to put the $100 million aside with the Center for Racial Equity. So when we find programs that work, we can do something to help unlock benefit there.
Yeah. Well, that is so good to hear that there are actual very thoughtful process put in place. But how do you then juggle all of this for such a tremendous scale, such as Walmart, with the interest of your shareholders? So you're obviously a public company. You have all kinds of pressures on you. You have to perform from one quarter to another. What do you think? What type of balance are you striving to find?
Yeah, time horizon matters, and we are really clear inside and outside the company that we're not a short-term company and we're not running the company for one quarter. We do expect the quarters to be good, but we've got our eye on the long term. So if you have us choose between short term or long term, we'll pick long term. If you have us choose between the top or the bottom line, we'll choose the top line. And we repeat that over and over again. Shared value comes to my mind because when you think about the decisions that you have to balance as a business leader, and I know, Tom, it's the same with you, you've got employees, our associates, we've got customers to serve, we've got communities to serve, suppliers, the planet, and you're balancing all of those. And you can make decisions over time that do balance them all. Sometimes the media or other critics might say, well, but you raised wages and that hurt your earnings, so you're not being driven by the investor. And I would say, well, actually the wage increase will help us with turnover and tenure and performance, and over time that is best for the investor. But if you're investing in us for one quarter, you're probably not in the right stock because we're working on trying to build something for the next generation of retail.
Yeah. So speaking about investments and the large investments that you have made during your tenure is in digital technology and modernizing Walmart. Obviously, Walmart has such a tremendous physical footprint, and very many critics were out there saying, well, that this is an extinct business model. You know, brick and mortar retailers are about to disappear. And you have demonstrated an ability not just to disappear, not just to sustain your business, but to actually grow it through this transformative move. Share a little bit of a detail behind your digital strategy and the use of technology for the day-to-day running of your business.
You know, we've used technology in the company for a very long time in different ways and pioneered some things in previous years. But we kind of had this period of time where the pace of change wasn't great enough, and we're playing some catch up, and that's what we've been doing. Part of that was building an e-commerce business, but there's also work underneath to modernize the tech architecture, which is really exciting, which enables more speed and innovation, and we're starting to see that now. When you get the right way of working, which is agile with product management, design thinking, the business, customer involved in a digital world, in our case, an omni world where there are both people and technology involved, your iterations, your cycle time can go up if your platform is right. So we've been investing these last few years to modernize our tech architecture and our tech capabilities so that what the customer sees on top is better and faster and more effective. And we're early days. Like if it's a baseball game, I feel like we're kind of in the third inning. We still have so much upside to try and deliver against that, but we've got momentum, and it's really cool to see what you can do for customers. When I started in this business, we had a way of serving customers, but today it literally feels like if you can imagine it, you can just about do it. You know, we will have last mile delivery capabilities. We will have drones flying through the air. We've got one not far from here that we're just waiting on the FAA to approve. That's a fixed wing craft with a company called Zipline that's about the size of me and you, and it's going to drop packages in our backyards here in the little town of Bentonville, Arkansas. Yeah. And ideally, you know, at some point around the country, all those things are going to happen, and they're going to happen sooner than what one might imagine. And I am so excited about that.
You know, one thing that comes to mind as I was reading a bit about the history of Walmart is the part of Sam Walton's success is that he really tried to learn from everybody. And what he particularly tried to do is to learn from his competitors. And I remember reading a chapter in his biographical book when he speaks about how he actually spent hours in the store of his competitor across the street to try to figure out why was that competitor so successful, so he can try to emulate it and then advance it. So, in the spirit of Sam Walton's strive to become the best at his game by learning from others, who are you looking up to? Walmart look up to for new ideas, new technologies, whether it's in your space or outside of your immediate space of retail, for new ideas?
Yeah. I think it's important to keep your customer in your main view and competitors in your peripheral vision to an extent. If you get too overly focused on one or the other, you can get distracted, and you've got to be who you are. Your strategy has to come from your strengths and weaknesses. But as you said, Sam watched competition very carefully. There are great stories about him wandering around the Kmart offices asking questions of people. I don't know how he got in Kmart's home office, but he also was measuring their cash registers. How tall are they? How wide are they? He went into a Gibson discount store one time and came out with one of our other leaders. Apparently the store didn't look as good as it could have. And Sam said, "But did you see the pantyhose rack? It's outstanding. Like, we should have the pantyhose rack." So that's in our DNA. Today, we don't only look at people like Amazon and Target and Costco and Aldi and great retailers around the world, but we're learning a lot from startups. And the startup community, both in this country and in other countries, is building solutions to things that in some cases apply to our business. So I and other leaders spend a lot of time meeting companies that are relatively young and may have a focus on one particular problem set, but somehow that in our portfolio would have a bigger benefit. And so I really enjoy that aspect of the business. Sometimes these people are quite a bit younger than I am, and I actually don't feel old yet. So I love debating things like, how will this work? What are your company values? How are you thinking about the long term? And how are you solving that problem again? And that's led to minority investments. In some cases, it's led to acquisitions.
Yeah. So there's another aspect of Walmart's presence and the aspirations, and that is the aspiration to be present also in healthcare, which is obviously the area that we're in. This is what we do. So let me ask you a question. As an employer, over 2 million associates around the world, what would you like to see from organizations like ours? And then as a company, what do you think, what is the role that Walmart could play in making healthcare better?
Well, let me start with humility. The job that you and your team do and the job that your peers in other parts of the ecosystem do is so important, and in some cases so complicated and complex. And so we don't presume to be experts or to know much. But what we see is that our customers aren't happy. They want more transparency. They want an easier experience and access to care, more affordability, and of course they want quality as the first and most important thing. And what we're thinking is they come to us already. In the United States, we do about 160 million transactions a week. We've got the third largest pharmacy. We're involved in optical and hearing, and we sell OTC products. So we're kind of in this space already, and we're hearing from our customers we could use help. So over the years, we've tried different things. And as you know very well, our associate base, because we're self-insured and we have a partnership with you and others, we're closer to healthcare with our associate base than with customers. So we know just a little bit and we see a need. So the thought is that with our stores, our big parking lots that have space for new clinics to be put on them, or in some cases inside of our stores, there's space for the existing store to be turned into a part of it being a clinic, that we can combine that with some telehealth capabilities. We made a telehealth acquisition not long ago, and some data and AI support. We could play a role in helping to triage care. So if it's something that could be done with one of our products, in some cases it could be dietary, we might be able to give people information, being the country's largest grocer, and help them eat a little better, have access to a higher quality product than they might have thought because it's a lower price than they expected, having them eat more produce instead of packaged goods, those kinds of things. But all the way through to that system, the clinics that we've opened so far are fairly full range. We'll do an x-ray, we do blood work, there's dental care there. In some cases, we have health counseling that comes in. And through a series of partnerships, we're trying to put together a system that would enable someone to get that kind of preventative care in a transparent way. When I'm in clinics and people walk into the clinic for the first time, they're intimidated. You can tell by their body language, and they're looking around, and frequently they'll kind of in a very low voice, ask one of us, is that really the price? And maybe they haven't had their teeth cleaned in a long time and they need something like that. And we're able to say, yes, that is the price. There's nothing more hidden to that. Somebody needs to help play that kind of role. And I think that Walmart could be one of the people to help in that regard. And then just lastly, I just want to say thank you for the relationship that we have. We literally bring our associates to you to take care of their hearts. And we are so grateful for the Center of Excellence relationship that we have. It helps our associates feel more comfortable, at ease, knowing that they're getting world-class care. We help pay for their travel and lodging and all that kind of stuff and just relieve the burden of the situation that they're in to some extent. And you guys help us do that, and we're grateful.
Well, thank you very much for trusting us with the care of your associates. We're always here for you. And then lastly, I know we spoke so much about Walmart and for all the right reasons, but I would just like to ask one more question, because you also do have responsibilities outside of Walmart. You also serve as the chairman of a business roundtable, and we had a pleasure of interacting in that particular forum. And obviously, Business Roundtable is the association of leading CEOs of a large publicly traded company in the United States. Can you talk a little bit about what are you trying to accomplish with the broader community of your peers?
Smart policy. As you know, the group of CEOs and businesses that are involved are working on different areas related to things like healthcare, data privacy, trade, taxation. And I've been part of the organization now for 8 years. I've been in this chair role for about 2. And what I've seen is consistent behavior from really bright people with good intentions, not too parochial, not too focused on their individual issues as a business, but looking at it more broadly, bringing forward the best ideas that we can come up with as a business community to help Congress, the administration, set smart policy for the country. You know, we're focused on the United States. That is our priority. We're trying to help make the United States stronger. And sometimes people listen and sometimes they don't, and sometimes you don't think they are, and then something ends up happening that's positive. It's been an experience the last couple of years being more involved in that process and seeing how it works. It's frequently frustrating. But I care a lot about this country, and I know that you do too, and these other leaders do as well. And so that's why we're part of Business Roundtable.
Yeah. Well, Doug, thank you very, very much for everything that you do. You're leading a wonderful company that is worth admiring, and thank you also for what you do for our broader business community and the community as a whole. It was truly a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to working with you. I hope even closer in the future. 2 of our organizations have so much in common. I think we can do a lot of good together.
Thank you, Tom. Enjoy working with you.
Thank you very much, and many thanks to all of you for joining us. Our Ideas for Tomorrow will return soon with more fascinating guests and informative conversations. We'll keep you posted about our upcoming speakers. Until then, take care and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.